Well, welcome. How you guys doing today? So, fun fact about me, maybe not as fun. Maybe some of you can relate to this. I am a naturally incredibly introverted. So the irony of speaking in front of people is just funny. But super introverted. So, for example, and maybe this has happened to you, and if it has, I apologize. If I see you in a grocery store, I will pretend like I don't. I can't help it. I just get worked up. I'm like, If you run into me and you are the person that pursues me, this happened the other day at Kroger. The person that's sitting on the front row ran into me. The moment I see someone, even if I know them well, I freeze. Like, I don't know how to talk. It doesn't matter who it is. I may know them well. I may not know them at all, but I am incredibly introverted. So what I'm about to do for you that are like me is going to be incredibly uncomfortable, okay? So just heads up. Some of you may not be worried about this, but what I'm going to need today is I'm going to need some help. Some help from you, from a few of you. You don't know who you are. In fact, I don't know who you are. Actually, I do. I put the things in the spots, so I know where it was supposed to be. You don't know which seat you were sitting in, but don't look yet. There's something under 3 seats. Don't look. Some of you can't help it. If there's something under your seat, not yet, don't look, quit looking. If there's something under your seat, I'm gonna need you to come up here and help me the entire time. I promise it won't be too long, but you're gonna have to help me the whole time. There's a few things that I'm gonna need help with, so you're gonna be up here. So if you're like me, make you super uncomfortable, do not look under your seat yet. I see some of you. But there's a little Post-it note. And if you have a Post-it note under your seat, I want you to go ahead and grab it. So everyone look real quick. See if you have a Post-it note under your seat. See if you have one. Those that have realized they don't have one, sigh of relief. All right, keep looking. And once you have it, I want you to go raise it up in the air. Nobody? I don't know about that. Yeah. No, I'm kidding. There's nothing under your seat. Gotcha. Now, the reason I do that is because that is what we're talking about today. Everything what we just experienced. All right, that's just, man, that was fun. Thank you, guys. Now, some of you don't need to raise your hand because I'm sure you would, were just fine with it. Like, oh, okay. I got ready today. But what you just experienced is actually what we're going to talk about today. It's one of the biggest problems, one of the biggest mental health issues that we have in our culture that has become so normal that we just pretend that it's part of life. But it's not intended to be that way. What we're talking about today is worry. The feeling of worry, specific worry that we have. The worry that we may face. Many of us battle this chronic, this ongoing sense of worry that there's always something in our mind that's poisoning our peace, that's killing our joy and stunting our spiritual growth. I'll say it again, that is poisoning our peace, killing our joy, and stunting our spiritual growth because there is this pressing matter on our mind of worry. Some things are really big. Some are worried that you're gonna have to come up here on the stage and stand. But whatever it may be, we have this ongoing sense of worry. In fact, Barna Research, it says this. It says about 60% of adults in the United States struggle with worry and stress daily. 60% of adults in the United States struggle with worry and stress daily, which means half of us that are sitting in this room right now have some burden, something on our mind, something that we want to change, something that we want to see different on our mind right now that we can't shake. Every single day. Why do we function in this way? Why is worry at the center of our mind? As we consider all the things in our mind, in our head, it is filled with some worry. This is your mind. Does it look like it? We're filled with some worry. Now, I would say it comes down to this one key thing. It's that as a result of our sinful nature, we default to fear. We default to fear. In everything that we consider, everything we do, in our sinful nature, we default to fear, not faith. And let me just illustrate that for you for a second. If you find yourself awake at 2 o'clock in the morning, you're probably not just thinking and dwelling on all of this peace and joy that you're experiencing right now. You're just like, man, what am I going to do with all this joy? Right? You wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning, you're not like, man, things are just great. Life is great, family's great. Maybe you are, and that's awesome. But most of the time, if you wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning, you have something else that's on your mind. Your child has the wrong friends. Maybe you have some health concerns. You have a job stress that's going on in your life. Your aging parents. Maybe it's something big, something huge. Things like terrorism, like war, division, the price of groceries. Whatever it may be, when you're up at the middle of the night, what you are is worried about something. Worried because we default to fear and not faith. But what I want to show you today is that Jesus said it's not supposed to be that way. That we're not supposed to default to our fear, but to live and walk in faith. Now, if you've been here over the last few weeks, we've been talking about mental health and all of the different facets of that. And if you were here just a few weeks ago, we talked about the concept, the idea of anxiety. And I want to talk a little bit about the difference, the similarities, the overlap with worry and anxiety, because while they are similar, they are different. There's a distinction. In fact, with worry, we tend to experience worry in our minds. We tend to experience worry in our mind. Worry is specific. It's focused on something very specific, whereas anxiety, we generally experience anxiety in our bodies. So we tend to experience worry in our mind, and we experience anxiety in our bodies. Again, overlap. This might be an oversimplification, but generally speaking, we experience worry in our mind and anxiety in our bodies. For example, you were worried, some of you, many of you, were worried that you would have to come up here to stand to help me to do something, but maybe you have anxiety about public speaking, about standing in front of people in that manner. Or maybe you're worried that you might miss a flight, but you have anxiety about traveling. We experience it a little different, but whatever you call it, whatever way you look at it, worry plagues our minds. And worry is specific. And Jesus tells us 3 words: do not worry. Do not worry. And what's incredible as we look in Matthew chapter 6, so if you have your Bible, you can go ahead and turn there. We'll be there here in just a minute. But in Matthew chapter 6, Jesus doesn't just tell us not to worry. He shows us how not to worry. How do we go about not worrying, having our mind consumed with these different things in our lives? And so in the middle of this powerful and practical teaching in Matthew chapter 6, we'll start in verse 25, we see Jesus is teaching on this concept of worry, and he covers 5 of the biggest topics that many of us worry about. You can take a look at those on the screen or right here. But 5 of the biggest topics we have, one of them is finances. That we let our mind be consumed with our finances. Or we have food. We are concerned, we are worried about our food. We have fitness, worried about your fitness, fashion, and our future. Jesus points out these 5 distinct parts of our life that we tend to worry about, but I would say it goes a little bit further than that. So we're going to look at those 5 and then a few more. Bonus points for having an alliteration, all F's. Let's take a look at Matthew chapter 6, verse 25. It says, "Therefore I tell you, do not worry." Now, one key thing to know whenever we're going through the Bible, whenever we're looking, when you see the word therefore, you have to ask yourself this question: what is it there for? So you see, therefore, I tell you, do not worry. Well, what is it there for? So we look at the verse before. Let's see what it says in the verse before. Just before that, it says this. It says, you cannot serve both God and money. That is, we have a concern about money. We have our mind, and we focus some of our attention, some of our mind on our finances. Concerned, worried about our finances. He says you cannot serve both God and money. One of the number one things that we worry about on a regular basis is our finances as it continues. It says, therefore, I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat, what you will drink. Another aspect of our life that we are concerned about is our food. Now, what's important to know about, as Jesus is speaking this in Matthew chapter 6, is the people he's speaking to did not have much money. They were poor. They did not have food regularly. So he's talking about their physical need for food. We worry about where we're going to get food every day. For us, the worry is a little bit different. Where am I going to go to lunch today? What's lunch going to look like right after here? Do I need to read all the ingredients to make sure that this is healthy? I can't have this. I can't have this. Did I eat too much? Did I have too many sour Skittles? Maybe I can have one Hershey's bar, but not two. Okay, fine, I'll have two. But we worry about our food, what we're taking in, and we let our mind be consumed with some things about our food. As Jesus continues, Matthew chapter 6, or about your body. Or about your body, your fitness. Worried about our fitness. Do I look good in these jeans? My fitness. Now, I want to call on an important distinction. We're going to talk about this here in just a minute, but there is a difference between concern and worry. But Jesus is saying, do not worry about your fitness. He's not saying, do not be fit. Do not exercise. That is not what he's saying. So he uses that as an excuse, like, no, what Jesus said. But our fitness, saying, do not be overly concerned, overly worried, overly focused on our fitness. Do not let that consume our mind, be everything that we think about. It continues, what you will wear. The jeans, are these good jeans? I didn't know this until this week. Some of you probably did. There's a limit to how many things you can take back to Target in a time frame. Did you know that? Like, you can only make so many returns. So you may get clothes, you may send them back, and then you get more clothes, and then you send them back. And there's a limit on how many clothes you can get because we are obsessed, we are concerned with our fashion. It matters. Jesus says, do not worry about what you will wear, but we let it consume some of our mind. And little by little, we see that our mind has a little less room to deal with the things that are important, the things that matter. Well, some of these things matter. We let it plague our mind as Jesus continues. If we fast forward to verse 34, it says, therefore, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. We concern ourselves with our future. What's going to happen tomorrow? What's going to happen next week? What is my life going to look like a week from now, a year from now, 10 years from now? We let our mind be consumed with our future. God, what are you doing? What's going on? As we let our worries start to pile up, we start to fill it with all of these different spots, all these different pieces of our lives, and it empties our mind. And I just want to ask a question. I wonder if this is true for you. That on a regular basis, you feel exhausted. And you haven't done anything. You wake up exhausted. You take a nap, you're exhausted. The nap was worse than if you hadn't slept. And I would say it's because we are draining our minds and we are living in a way that God did not intend for us to live. We're trying to take care of all of these things by ourselves. We are worried. And Jesus says, do not worry. Do not just try and take care of these different things by yourself. He's not saying they are not important. Again, there's a difference between concern and worry. And Jesus shows us this. Again, Jesus doesn't just tell us not to worry. He shows us how not to worry. As it continues in verse 26, look at the birds of the air. They do not sow, they do not reap or store away in barns, yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much more valuable than they? Jesus takes care of the birds, and they don't worry. You don't see them just pacing their nest, right? Just wonder if the supply chain is going to be bad on worms. No. But the important thing to know is that birds are not just waiting for God to send them a worm in their lap. They don't even have laps. So they can't do that, but they don't just sit there and wait. They do something about it. And again, this illustrates the difference between worry and concern. Jesus isn't saying don't be concerned with your finances. Don't be concerned with your fitness. Don't be concerned with your food. He's saying do not worry. And the distinction, the difference is this. The concern focuses on challenges and moves you to action. I encourage you to write that down. Concern focuses on challenges and moves you to action. If the bird is hungry, the bird does something about that. But the bird is not pacing. Saying, I wonder if I'm going to get a worm today. It doesn't wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning. Chirp, 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 chirp. No, it's asleep. It gets the worm. It goes back home. It goes to sleep. Because concern focuses on challenges and moves you to action, whereas worry focuses on what's beyond our control and results in inaction. When we think about our finances, we're not solving anything about our financial issue. It's like, man, this is a really big problem. I'm going to do something about it. No, we're worried. We're consumed with this idea that if I just think about it, maybe it will go away. I'll take care of it. But worry focuses on what's beyond our control and results in inaction. And I would go to say most of us in here probably have control issues. I know I do. My therapist told me on Monday, he said, I'm just going to have a revelation for you. You have control problems. It's like, oh, thanks, man. It's good talking to you too, Dan. But it's true, we have problems with control. We want to be able to control, but worry focuses on what's beyond our control, and it results in inaction and not doing anything. We just stew on something without doing anything about it. Again, Jesus isn't saying don't be concerned with the things that are important, that matter, that I've put in your life. Take care of your body. Make sure you're fed well. Wear clothes, please. But don't be overly consumed with it. And I wonder if, because we just stew on stuff that we're not able to do anything about, that we largely have no control over, I wonder if that's why Jesus says in verse 27, he says, can any one of you by worrying add a single hour to your life? Can we add a single hour to our life by worrying? No. You know, when we break it down, when we consider the idea of worry, that we want to fill our minds with these different things that are important. Maybe it's some of these, maybe it's something good, like we're continuing the trend of alliteration, family. Our family is important. We are worried about our family and what may happen. So we pour just a little bit of our mind, our focus. We find ourselves more exhausted because we are running out of our mind. We have no more room to think. You wonder why you're so forgetful these days. Well, it's because you're filling your mind with all these worries. But we're worried about our family, so we're like, I gotta do something about it. Or maybe our friends. I worked really hard on these alliterations, so I just want you to know. Our friends. So like, you know what? Friends are important. Friends matter. Don't got a lot of them, but I got a few. Our friends. And then maybe we find ourselves concerned about other things like baseball. It's going to bug some of you. Or fill in the blank. Whatever it may be. Things that may matter to you, but ultimately aren't the biggest things in the world. Whatever it may be. Fill in the blank for what goes here. We let our mind be consumed with these ideas, these thoughts. And we are running out of space, of focus. Because our mind's all over the place. You could throw another 25 things up here, and that's still not going to be as many things as we worry about on a regular basis. And so when we consider the idea of worry, what we're really saying to God is that, God, I don't really trust you. I don't trust that you're going to take care of my finances. I don't trust that you're going to take care of my future. I don't trust that whatever the fill in the blank is for you, I don't trust you in this circumstance. I don't trust your plan. I don't think that you're with me. I don't see you. I don't hear you. I don't know where you are, what you're doing. But God, I don't see you. I don't even know if I think you're there. That's really what we're saying to God. When we say we worry, we're like, I'm concerned. But Jesus says, do not worry. Do not worry. Do not live in this way. I want you to write this down as well. This statement, ultimately, if we were to summarize the idea of worry in our lives, it's this. It's what you worry about most reveals where you trust God the least. What you worry about most reveals where you trust God the least. What is that for you? Is it a relationship? Is it a health concern, a financial fear? A specific family member? Is it your future? What you worry about the most reveals where you trust God the least. Be honest with yourself. What are you worried about right now? So 60% of us worry on a daily basis. I would say 100% of us worry on a weekly basis. What you worry about most reveals where you trust God the least. So what do we do about that with this empty mind? Unsure what to do with it. We think, well, maybe I can just fill it up a little bit more. Got some reserve. Someone gave me a little bit. I'll fill my mind with this. Maybe we think we're filling it up, but it's just the same mush that's going to end up in those containers later. It's like, okay, now let me worry again. And keep dealing with these things again and again. And we never feel fulfilled, drained, consumed with this. But what does Jesus tell us? As this passage continues, we see in verse 33. But seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. To seek him first, to fill your mind with the things of God. Not worry. That God will spring you into action, but instead of draining your mind to all of these worries, all these concerns, God will take care of those things for you. Just like he takes care of the birds and everything that the birds need, God will do the same for you, but we have to set our mind right, put things in their proper place, that our mind is here and all of our concerns go underneath, and God will take care of those things for us if we just let him do it. And what we see is we fill our mind, we seek God first. He takes care of everything for us. We don't know what it's going to look like. And this is one really important distinction I want to make for you. And ultimately, it's this. That out of the things that you are worried about, the things that you are concerned about, the things that fill your mind consistently, one of three things will happen with them. One of three things with every single worry that we may have. The first one is that it may never happen. What you are worried about may never happen. We let our mind just be consumed with all these thoughts of these irrational fears that may occur. I'm with you there. I have this irrational fear that for some reason my house is going to burn down, and so I have everything that's super important to me other than my family in this one little backpack. So if something happened, I grab the one backpack, OU backpack, go you, Boomer Sooner, no? Okay. But I grab the backpack and I run. It has everything that's important to me in that backpack, other than my girls, my wife, dogs, debatable. No, I'd grab them too. But we have these irrational fears, these worries, and the one fact about what you're worried about today, it may never happen. In fact, there was this study done by Penn State. They asked people to document what they were worried about and how many of their fears happened in the next 30 days. How many of their fears happened? So you're worried about something. How many of those fears came true? 91% of them never happened. These people were worried. I'm worried this may happen. I'm worried that may happen. I'm worried this friend may not like me anymore, may not talk to me anymore. I was worried that she wouldn't say yes whenever I asked her out, whatever it may be. What you are worried about today, it may never happen. 91% of those things may not happen. Or two, it may happen and it won't be as bad as you thought. For example, if you were supposed to give a presentation, you're like, I didn't do well, but it wasn't that big of a deal. Job didn't change. You're worried about having to come up here and help me. well, it didn't really happen, and it wasn't really as bad as you thought because you didn't have to get up. But it may never happen, or two, it may happen, but it won't be as bad as you thought. The worry that we have, the thing that consumes us, it may not actually be as bad as we once thought it would be. Or three, it may happen, but God will carry you through it. How? Seek first his kingdom and his righteousness. Fill our mind with the things of God, and he will take care of the rest. Filling our mind with the things of God. That's why ultimately when we look at it, when we break it down, the whole point of the way we're supposed to live is with this one statement. And it's the cup that overflows has no room for worry. You see, I would say if we look at this and we pretend that this is our mind and all of the things that come out of our head, God says, seek first me. Seek first his kingdom, his righteousness. The times that we feel exhausted when we haven't even done anything, all of the other mental health issues that we may run into, a lot of them stem from worry, from filling our minds, emptying our minds into the things that God doesn't say handle by ourselves. The cup that overflows, the mind that overflows, it has no room for worry. Saying, I know that I have these pressing financial issues. I know that I have a future that I'm concerned about. But as we are overflowing, God says, look, I'm going to take care of it. I've got you. If our mind is so filled in this manner, we don't have room for worry. And that's why he says, seek first his kingdom and his righteousness. In fact, when we start to live in this way, our worries become blessings for other people. Of saying, God, I have worries about my finances. I have worries that this water's getting everywhere. See some of you looking. But it overflows because when we live in such a way that we know God is with us, that he is there for us, that he is supporting us, we become a blessing to others in the ways that we once had concern about, that we once had worry about. God says, I will overflow every aspect of your life if you focus first on me, not your worry. Because what worry does is it leads to exhaustion, it leads to anxiety, it leads to depression. You name it, it leads to that. But the cup that overflows, it has no room for worry. And God's going to take care of all of those things for us. And one truth about that is it gets messy. It's messy. It's probably bugging some of you that this is messy. I got to clean it up. I have more towels, I promise. But the cup that overflows, it has no room for worry. And as Jesus shows us in Matthew chapter 6, do not worry. Seek first me. Seek first his kingdom and his righteousness. And again, what you worry about today reveals where you trust God the least. What are you lacking trust in today? Seeking after God. Doesn't mean our worries just disappear, but they're full with him. They're taken care of in such a way that what was once a worry is now a blessing for the people around us. For many of us, there's something heavy that's on our hearts, heavy on our minds. And as we consider that, I need to really think for a moment, what is that for you? And I want to read a psalm that really stands out to me and has over the years. Psalm 23. And in Psalm 23, it's a psalm of David just crying out to God to be there for him, to overflow his cup. It says this, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He restores my soul. He guides me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. And even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil. You are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Did you get that? Even though I walk through the most difficult of times, I fear no evil. For you are with me. Our worry, again, it stems out of fear, not faith. So consumed with the ways that we think that God's going to fall short or we're going to fall short. You have anointed my head with oil, my cup, it overflows. And this is what it leads to, the very last verse. Surely goodness and loving kindness will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Every single one of these worries are temporary. They'll pass. They'll fade away. God says, fill your mind with me. I'll take care of the rest. That when you sit there in the spot where you're just all alone, where you let the thoughts just run, and fear is the only thing that you notice, the only thing in front of you. And you sit there in the silence and all of your insecurities, all your worries, whatever it may be, whatever cup stands out to you. I want us to take a moment this week to let us be reminded that that is when God holds us tight and we notice it. Because the reality is he's always holding you tight. Saying, I see what you're going through. I see what's going on. It'll be all right. I'm there. It'll be all right. I'm with you. But don't worry. Don't function out of fear. Function out of faith, seeking me first. Letting our mind be consumed, being overflowing with the goodness of who God is. So we can then dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Let's pray together.